Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So I am Robin Schwartz. I am the Program and Grant Director of the Community Arts Partnership of Tompkins County, and the Art Trail is a CAP event. Just some housekeeping. I'm going to have all of the participants keep themselves on mute, if that's okay. And the bathrooms are down the hall. Feel free to leave anytime. We will be, I'm sorry, I'm trying to lift my my computer up because it's overheating. We will be monitoring the chat. So all you visitors who are here tonight, please use the chat to ask questions, to talk to the artists, etc. You can write comments to everyone or just to me, Robin Schwartz, if you need assistance. Artists will be looking at the chat, so they could be answering your comments and questions. Tonight's artists will talk for about 7 minutes each, and then we'll do a Q&A. And I just wanted to tell you that the Art Trail is a program of the Community Arts Partnership of Tompkins County. You're all going to be on our mailing list. I hope you don't mind. If you do mind, when you get an email, you can simply click unsubscribe. But our mission is here, you can see it, to strengthen the arts in Tompkins County. We have a lot of programs. We have the Ithaca Artist Market.
90% connected to HP.
Whoever that is, please mute. We have the Ithaca Artist Market in August. We have a Spring Rights Literary Festival in May. We have an awesome event called Capapalooza Art Sale Extraordinaire in December, where we collect previously owned art, like the stuff you have in your closets that you don't know what to do with, or were gifted, or remind you of someone you don't want to be reminded of. We collect all that art in early December and then have a sale from December 6th to the 13th, and we sell it all. Last year, we made $14,000. We do not ask artists for their own work. Really, we're kind of collecting a lot of funky stuff that your Aunt Emma made in art class in 1964. We have networking events for artists. The next one is October 24th. And we have a professional development workshop series. The next one is a marketing one on November 21st. We just did a fundraising for creatives workshop that is recorded and is on our website. And basically, everything we do is free. A very large part of what we do is grant programs. In 2024, we distributed almost $600,000, or maybe it was $650,000, to local artists, arts organizations, and not-for-profits for public programs, artist and community programs, and arts residencies in the schools. We also have a strategic opportunity stipend for artists. I haven't posted the 2025 grants yet, but they should be on our website in a week or so and due in January. And I will also run many grant writing workshops on Zoom and around the county. Andrew, if you could put artspartner.org in the chat, that is our CAP website. And tonight's program is about the Greater Ithaca Art Trail. There are open studio weekends this weekend. Many of the artists tonight are open. There are actually over 30 artists that are open this weekend. So after this meeting is over, I will send everybody who enrolled for this the PDF of who is open, but it's also at arttrail.com. There's a gallery show up right now in the CAP Art Space. It also exists online in 3D if you don't want to go downtown or if you're not local. And this will be up through October 26th. Everything about the Art Trail is on arttrail.com. And this is what the homepage looks like. Artists and who is open, that's clear. Events and registration. You probably went to this page actually to register for this event. And we have Google Maps this year. And every artist has a page. So all their contact information and such is on arttrail.com. And then we have our sponsors, which helped out with this event. So we are going to start tonight with Sara Minardi. And Sara, I'm going to spotlight you. And you can take yourself off mute. You know what? Did I press record? Oh, yes, I did. For all those people watching, yes, haha. Sara Minardi, saraminardi-art.com. And you do colorful illustrations, paintings, and paper mache. So take it away, Sara.
Okay. So yeah, I'm a artist based here in Ithaca. Mainly I do a lot of illustration work. Right here is something I'm working on right now. It's about the 12 labors of Hercules. Um, and this just kind of shows my process. I start with a lot of sketches and then I will take pictures of them or scan them in and then I'll work on them on my computer. Yeah, so pretty much this is one where it just kind of shows how it's evolving a little bit. I'm still working on it a lot, but oh, the next picture. This is another some other illustrations I'm working on. I made a zine recently that's a little ghost story, and it's just kind of a little comic strip about a ghost, and then just some more illustration work. I pretty much, again, it's the same process, and I'll use gouache a lot too when I start. Like I'll start with color pencils and gouache, and then I'll end up bringing it into like just alter some stuff digitally. And then the next picture. These are ones I did recently, and I actually made a card set out of them. A lot of the stuff that I make, I'll make stickers or card sets or stationery out of. So this is just a series of birds that I drew, and you can tell I really like bright colors a lot. Next. This is an example of some of the cards and stickers and buttons that I make, and I'll sell them usually at like markets that I do and online on Etsy. Next. Now this is my paper mache stuff, which I really just do more for fun, but I do sell some of them. I love the process of it. Honestly, I find it really relaxing. And yeah, I've made like really big ones too. I've made like giant flowers for my daughters and stuff. And I've done big things for like plays that they've been in. And so I really love that process. Next. This is another one of my illustrations. It's one of my favorites. I really love making little characters and kind of giving them their own personality. And so this just shows an example of that. And it's inspired by Ithaca, actually. So, and then next, is that it? Oh, and this is one of my, an older painting that I did. And then right there in the corner, you can see the little bird that I did. I also like doing collage work a lot. I used to do more paintings because when I lived in San Francisco, I would do shows and everything. I'm trying to get back into it, but now I mostly still just do a lot of illustration work. And next, do I have anything? This is these are some of the prints that I sell. And then in the middle, the guy with the bird on his head is a collage and a painting. Next.
I think that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Sara.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions for Sara, were you inspired by Hercules?
I actually was asked to do for my son's for a Boy Scout thing. I was asked to do some of the props for it. So what I did first with those drawings was I had made them into like the wild boars that I did and the Cerberus. I always say it wrong. They were actually like really big. Like the kids were able to like throw beanbags through their mouths as part of a game. So it was really fun to do. And then I just decided to go further with it. And I'm having fun with it so far.
Great. Check the chat. You're getting a lot of compliments.
Oh, okay.
And Sara is not one of the artists that are open for the Open Studio weekends, but please go to the Art Trail website, check out her pages, buy her work.
Thank you.
Next, we have Leanora Mims, and I am going to replace the spotlight with Leanora. There she goes. Replace. You are all set, Leanora. Oh, and there's her website. And also in the chat, you'll find the link to her Art Trail page. And Leanora is a fiber artist. And I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Here's your first slide.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. This slide is very, very funny. This woman, her name is Camille Billups Hatch, and she was at Cornell 20 years ago. And she was at Emory University. Now, Camille Billups Hatch is very, very important. And one of the reasons she's very, very important is that she gathered all the art of Black artists, and her husband, Richard Hatch, gathered all the plays of Black playwrights. And this had never been done before. She was the first to do it, and he was the first to do it. And so when she was being introduced, she said he saw her pots and he was hooked. So they all were laughing. And I remember when she came here to Cornell and she was at IMP, she looked at all of us who were there and she said, "Why aren't you in New York?" We couldn't answer. Now, Zora Neale Hurston says there are some questions that are answered, and then the answers take years. So that's finally happened to me. I answered the question of why I was not in New York with her doing art is because I had to grow and I had to create art for myself here and become the artist that I am and do all the great work that I've done here in my community and for my family so that I could be who I am now. Robin, you still have Sarah's picture.
Huh?
You still have Sarah's picture. You still have Sarah's picture?
Do you want me to go to the next slide? I wasn't sure what
Yeah,
you were.
next slide. Okay,
Yeah.
so this
Yeah, just when you want me to
this
go to the next slide, just say next.
next slide. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is the Camille Billups Hatch conference room at Emory University, where I came full circle last summer through a grant sponsored through the Community Arts Partnership. And one of the reasons was I did a beautiful quilt to honor the memory of Dr. Pelham McDaniels III, who was the curator of collections at the Woodruff Rare Manuscript and Library. Now, this man was very, very important because he was a North Star for everybody. But before he became a North Star, he played professional football. And when his football career was over, he got inspired by Dr. Henry Louis Gates, who was the first director of the Africana Center at Cornell University, and Dr. Gates is now at Harvard University. Wonderful, wonderful man. He inspired Dr. Pelham McDaniels to curate African American art and to do lectures and to talk about it. Now, he was so important that when he was even playing for the Atlanta Falcons, he would go to Emory and bring children from the neighborhoods and have them create art. He was absolutely wonderful. And as you can see, there's a magazine of Miles Davis. And these are the things that they collected. So I was so happy to be there. I had my program from the Blackness in Color exhibit, and I just had to hold it up because her name is in the program and it came full circle. Next slide, please. On the left, you'll see the memorial piece that I created for Dr. Pelham McDaniels III, and you'll see the installation, What Must Be Honored. What is important about this is the Sankofa symbol and the colors. And the Sankofa symbol is the golden algorithm. And Sankofa means to go back and bring to the present what's useful for the future. And that's what Dr. Pelham McDaniels' work did. And I was so honored to be able to create this piece and bring it and present it to Emory. And they felt that it was so important and his work was so important that it should have a place in the installation. It was very honorable for me. Next slide, please. So here you see the board and the explanation of the word Sankofa from the Tweed language and what it means. But you also see the butterfly chapel. Now, Dr. McDaniels was so thorough, he hung those butterflies in his dining room before he installed them at Emory so that they would hang perfectly. And they represent all the artists' ancestors who have passed on. Now, what's important on the back of the material is dragonflies. which stand for transformation, and lotus flowers, which stand for life. So he would be forever remembered by that piece because of the dragonflies and the lotus flower and the symbolism. And they really thought the piece symbolized what he stood for and how he treated everyone and how he was so involved with making art accessible and available. This piece is a memory piece for my cousin Craig in memory of his daughter Roshana. So it's a family quilt, which is something that I do. And I do memory pieces for members of my family who have passed on, and to celebrate their life and what they've done and what they mean to our family. Next slide, please. That's the back of the piece, and it stands for the lifelines of everyone that's remaining. Next piece, please. This piece is a narrative quilt for Dr. Pearl Taylor, and it tells his life story. Now, if you go to African cultures like the Fon in the Congo, you can see where they have in the center of the city the story of the community. So he commissioned me to do his story. The picture on the left is him when he was a captain of the swim team. The picture in the middle is him when he became emeritus, when he graduated in 1960. In 2010, they celebrated and he had emeritus status. And the last one is Mrs. Rosa Parks when she worked at the Rose Inn at Hampton University. Next slide, please. This is a book about whispering quilts, and it talks about the symbols on the Underground Railroad. And the reason I included this book is that it's based on the artist's descendant in his family. And so I wanted everyone to take a look at it and maybe go to Amazon and read the book. It's a very, very good book. Next slide, please. And this is the back of the book. And, you can read it at your leisure. Next slide, please.
And this is the last one.
Yeah, that's the last one. That's everything that you need further information about. And there's also a StoryCorps interview through the National Endowment for Humanities with me and Dr. Taylor, and it talks about all the quilts that are in this presentation.
And if anyone wants this slide, after tonight, I'm going to send all of you the list of who's open this weekend. And if that point you want this, just email me back and say, please send me Leanora's links, and I will do that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, and make sure you look in the chat because there's some nice comments. Next one is Domenica Brockman. Let me replace the picture with Domenica. And take yourself off mute and you are all set. And Domenica is open this weekend, or are you? You're still on mute. I can send a request to unmute you.
Hello.
There we go. Yay.
Yay.
There's nothing when you're like, when people are waiting for you to do something on Zoom, time slows down.
It
So
sure does.
are you open this weekend?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Domenica, I should have put her address in here. She is on the Commons on the second floor above Patroon.
126 East State Street is the address.
And I'll be sending everybody that list with addresses in it. So here you go.
Okay. So I just this particular body of work that I'm sharing is all about color relationships. It's geometric abstract art. And the sort of goal here is sort of studying the spectrum and the way one color sort of leads to another. And what I was trying to do is take each color and then put a related color next to it that was as close as possible to the color, enough that it, you can't quite, is it a new color or not? And to just kind of repeat the process until it's completely something different. So, we might start with the orange and just go add a little more red, and then add a little more red, and then a little bit, until it becomes darker and darker, until it becomes black, and then go back around to lighter. And yeah, so that's sort of the means that I'm going through in this particular body of work. So we can go to the next picture. And you can see again, I'm trying to connect the shapes now. So you've got the connection of color, but then you also have connections of shapes. So the way the pink and the blue circle tie into the rainbow circle, and then taking this sort of wedge theme, but then it becomes a rectangle. So it's kind of trying to do something visually that is harder to put into words, but that's what I'm trying to do, just create an interesting relationships between color and shape. And this is painted on, I see somebody's asked the question, B, if that was painted on wood. So it's encaustic, which is hot wax. So it's a beeswax mixed with pigment and resin, and heated and then painted on while hot. This piece that we're looking at now is acrylic on canvas, and it's very large. This is about 12 feet by 6 feet, something like that. And again, it's the color relationships idea. It's on raw canvas in this case, but the color relationships this time it was taking complementary colors, which are the opposite sides of the spectrum. So red and green, and how do you make them sort of come together? So taking that red and mixing in a tiny bit of green and a tiny bit more and tiny bit more until it stops being red and becomes green, and then becomes like a pure unadulterated green, and then starts again with the red. So that's what's happening all through that piece, is doing it with the red and letting the color slowly go from one end of the spectrum to the other. And what's interesting is when you mix two complements, you're basically mixing the whole rainbow, because every complementary color combination, red and green, for example, red is primary, but green has two colors. It's made of yellow and blue. So basically you've got yellow and blue in this painting, even though it's only there subtly. You can go to the next picture. And here again, I'm doing the same thing, but this time with orange and blue. And again, it's like, at what point does it stop being orange? At what point does it stop being blue? And that's it. Well, there's one more image, I guess. And this one is more focusing on, this again is on wood, and with the encaustic, which is the hot wax. And in this one, I'm thinking more about lights and darks. So there's the complementary color thing happening with the purples and the yellows, but it is also like the intensity of the color, black and white. So it's sort of like one side is all dark and one is sort of lighter colors, and sort of putting them together in this to make a whole. Yeah, so that pretty much covers it.
And go visit. I could see your work in the background behind you.
Yeah.
You're in the studio.
Yes.
Definitely go visit Domenica this weekend, especially if you're downtown on the Commons. And next we have Shawn Bridget Hull. Let me pull you up, Shawn. Replace.
Hi.
There you are.
Sorry about my weird lighting here.
And then you look very, very romantic. Shawn is open this weekend. And again, I'll be sending you a list with all the addresses on it. And as you can see, she's doing an event on Sunday. She's open Saturday and Sunday, but on Sunday, she'll be doing a poetry reading in the sculpture garden at 3 p.m. And also Sunday only, take part and make a star or snowflake. Is that porcelain?
No, we're doing paper snowflakes.
Oh, cool. All right. There you go.
So I'd like to start by reading a poem to you. This poem is actually fused onto the sculpture in the small clouds that are inside the larger cloud. And it's called Transfiguration. My body is a cloud, billowing vapor and yellow roses, chocolate cupcakes with sprinkles on your birthday, tender hope and bruised silver linings, icy crystals defending my moot point, and snarky comments when I feel unlovable. Vapors shape-shifting from who you want me to be, to who I want me to be, to who I actually am, and coming to terms with that. When I said when I've had enough, I let go. Falling, 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 back to the land, cold rain, tears, sowing new flowers and fruit, traveling through the lakes and oceans, only to evaporate again. So, hello again. My work is the synthesis between ceramic sculpture, poetry, and performance. I have an MFA in theater, and I've been a professional actress, director, and teaching artist, as well as a fine artist, dabbling a little bit in painting and embroidery, but more seriously in functional ceramics as well as sculpture. And my life in the arts has taken several different incarnations, but I've always tried to fuse together my love of narrative, along with bringing people together, and then art, whether it's fine or performing. And that mission has taken me to create my own business. I have a company called Happiest Days Designs. Next slide. And originally I started, this is a very early sculpture that was meant for gift giving. People would purchase these ceramic hearts with little smaller hearts to commemorate important events in their life, and ship them nationwide. And then also more recently, next slide, have become a wedding planner. And so my work in wedding planning has been to help couples interpret their ideas and create a celebration, very much using my directing skills to help people create a happy day that they will remember and cherish for all their lives. And this brings me great joy, but it doesn't quite scratch the itch that I have for communicating and creating my own work. So next slide, please. So I started to create my own sculpture and then take my poetry and then fuse it onto the sculpture so that it's permanent. My work borrows elements from nature. This particular piece that you're looking at right now is called Knot. And it's based on a wooden knot that you see on a tree that was separated. And the piece itself talks about creating relationship through disagreements and coming to healing through a teenage daughter. The next slide, please. My next piece is called Empty Nest. Again, I'm borrowing from nature, and this piece explores motherhood, the relationship as you're, preparing for your child to leave the nest, and renegotiating your relationship with your children, as well as renegotiating the relationship to you yourself. And then the next piece, it's called Fruit. This piece explores a very long friendship and terminal illness and the abrupt loss of that friendship due to a terminal illness. So all of my work strives to be narratives that I use to create little whispers in my viewer's ear. I want to reach out from the form and connect my world with that of the viewer. I want to also engage the viewer and disrupt the usual way that they interact with nature. Next slide, please. So my family and I moved here in 2018, and the landscape here really affected me. Not long after we moved here, COVID happened, and I found myself, you know, in a new home that was surrounded on 4 sides by cornfields. I had the view of the woods in the distance, so many critters around my house. And even though I couldn't see the lake, I knew it was close by. And all my life, I've taken nature for granted, you know, that the sun will rise, that the air is clean, that seasons will change. And more it's become obvious that with climate change, we shouldn't take these things for granted. And so being here started to want me to push my work further in making those connections. So I feel like we as people are our nature. We don't live around nature or surrounded by nature, but we as humans are also nature. And it became more and more clear to me that our relationship with our own body is very similar to that of the relationship of us to the land and us to each other. And perhaps we should be a little bit more tender with all of those things. And so in this piece, the hills you see in the background, as I mentioned, are right outside my back door. And I wanted to explore that idea.
Connected to H.
So this piece is called Me and Her, and the writing is on that cloud on the upper right-hand side. And the poem is, "The woman in the blue hills calls me. I cannot resist the south sun illuminating her face, or the lake winding its way between her breasts. All at once, I am her, and I am myself. Together we gaze upward, searching for clues." Next piece. Called Tender is Spring, and it's based on Cuga Lake. There are words inside the piece spread on the ice that's sort of laid on the top and also on the little mobile. And it says, "Deep, deep, deep below the ice, water flows, thawing the gray shards to slush. With enough sun, the whole thing gives way to bird song." And then the last piece, Little Altars. Deep within, I hold what is precious, covered from prying eyes. The dance I do on the surface confuses you and me, where my treasure lies. We cannot be contained. That is the truth. No matter how hard you close your fist, the air slips right through. Honor what you hold dear. Honor in the light. Honor what gives you peace. Fill your hidden altars with joy burning bright. Honor yourself with golden rule, knowing that beauty, it seeps right through. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shawn. Next is Sue Brightly. There you go. Now Sue is open this weekend. And where's Du Bois Road? That's like halfway from here to Trumansburg.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And wrap a colorful stick. You'll see what she's talking about in her slides. And selected original paintings, 20% off. Awesome. Here you go.
I'm sorry, I'm still processing and speechless from Shawn's poetry. That was just amazing. I'm super moved and just also astonished and incredibly honored and excited to be here among all of these amazing artists. I just love this. Love. But here, I'll go through my things. And it's interesting, Shawn speaks a lot about nature, and I can kind of riff off of that segue, because a lot of the work I do is it's about nature. It's so present here where we live. And then I have my own quirky twist on things, of course. So this is a painting I did last year, which I really like it. It's nobody can ever guess what it is. It's the mysterious Fisher cat, because nobody ever sees Fisher cats, but they're out there. I have seen one. It's basically a giant weasel. It looks like a bear, and that's how I paint. It's more about a feeling. I saw if you're familiar with the book sale that happens twice a year, I go and I load up on all these great books, and I'm really fond of Renaissance portraiture. And so there's a painting by Lorenzo Lotto called Man Holding a Golden Paw, which is so weird, and I couldn't look away from it. And so basically that inspired this strange painting. That's the story of that one. They all have a story. Next slide, please. Like this one. This was inspired, you'll never guess, but it was inspired by the eclipse. And you can see the teeny tiny little eclipse up there in the top, which of course we didn't really see because it was covered with clouds, but those were the pictures I saw, where that little tiny little circle. Anyway, there was a beaver, I don't know if on the road into town, it was all summer long. It was eating one tree at a time. I don't know if anybody else noticed it. Over there by the park where the children's garden is, it was lopping down. Every day we'd come down, one more tree was down. It was a beaver. So anyways, I wrap sticks and I like colors, and here's the beaver. I also was brought up a Catholic, so I wind up making saints out of everything. And that's the story of this one. Next slide, please. I'm gonna just rush through these. This this is the painting I have down in the show right now. I really like this one. This is Possum Ecstasy. It also was inspired by a Renaissance painting. See, I look at real art. It was the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. Yep.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. With a
Yeah.
bunch of snails and frog cherubs and just things that come out of my head, because it's fun and sort of nature with mushrooms. Next. And this is a Groundhog Ascension. Now there's some really, I laugh, I make a lot of fun of stuff, but there's the actual serious stuff going on. Groundhog is of the earth, so the whole idea of rising heavenward. I like to paint animals, especially that people overlook or, don't like. And groundhogs get a really bad rap. So I just sort of wanted to elevate groundhog here. Next. And this is actually a really sad thing, because I had driving on a road trip to go visit my family. I was just so taken aback by the carnage of roadside roadkills. And it was bothering me a lot. And then October happened last year, and I was just totally overcome. And probably some of the artists here have this happen, where it's just like, I just have to paint this out of myself. And so that's what happened on this one. Let's see. Next one. The next one is happy. The next one is a friend of mine this is an actual photograph. Well, it was inspired by an actual photograph. Chicken was riding her sheep. How could I not paint it? It was just fun. Yeah, that's what works. Oh, do I have time? I've got a couple more here.
Yeah.
All right, here's, those sticks. I spend a lot of time in the woods because we're surrounded by woods here, and I love yarn because it's so colorful, and I'm not really good at crocheting. I couldn't crochet at all. when I started. So I just wanted to do something with all the yarn that I felt compelled to purchase. So I just started wrapping sticks with it, and oh my gosh, I love the way they feel. So I have yarn wrapped sticks all through the house now. They really fill up a corner really nicely. And if you would like to come and wrap a stick, come on down this weekend. But that's kind of what they can look like, and they're fun. And then I paint them. Next. Another thing I do a lot of trying things. So you'll never guess what this is made out of. This is wasp nest paper. It's made out of wasps' nests. And no wasps are ever hurt because they abandon it in the fall and the winter, and then they're gone. So I take it and I make paper mache out of it, which is really cool. I see my stick wrappers. And then I can paint on it, or I cover things like books. This is also something that gets really serious, conceptual language and nature and talking. I can talk about it, but not here, not now. But I do think deep thoughts sometimes. And then last one. I'm working on a kids book. People for years have told me, "Oh, you should paint kids books." Blah, 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 and I don't really want to. You might be familiar with Graham Ottoson over at Boardlandia, who is amazing. She's written a book. And so we're working on illustrating it and getting it out there. We started off with mice. This is one of the early sketches. We're moving it into voles because, you know, everybody knows mice, but nobody knows voles. It's like fisher cats. So anyways, this is another thing that I'm playing with. And now I'll breathe. Thank you.
So there's a lot of comments for you in chat, but the early ones, are you doing acrylic? Are those acrylics?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they're not huge, right? They're like 20 by 18, something like that. Yeah.
24, 16 by 20.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Kari Zelson Robertson, and I am pulling you up, Kari. There you are. And Kari is open this weekend. And Pearsall Place is kind of halfway between downtown and Ithaca College off Hudson. And she can show you her wheel throwing. Folks, welcome to try it out. That is so cool. So take it away.
Hello, everybody. It's been a lot of fun to hear all the ways that everybody works with their materials. And yeah, so I have become a bit addicted to working in clay. People often ask, you know, like, how did you know you were an artist? And I just say, like, I didn't really even think about it. I just kept making things. Like, I just love to make things, and I always have. So I guess that kind of qualifies because I just keep doing it, you know. So it's very enjoyable. This is a photo of probably my biggest inspiration, and that is my mother. So she was quite a maker. She made all of our clothing. She started a woodworking shop in our basement, and she was always making something. And even after, you know, when I had moved away and I would come back, the first thing that we would always do when I walked in the door after, you know, not seeing her for a long time is to go to the workshop and see what are all the projects that are going on. And that joy, I feel like really, she handed that to me in a big way. So in this photo, there's a pot sitting on a tree trunk in her backyard. That's a pot that I made when I was a student at Alfred University, which has a world-renowned ceramics program. I had seen people making things out of clay when I was like in third grade. I remember seeing it and thinking, oh, wow, that looks fun. And finally got a chance to try it out in college. I was an art education major and became an art teacher. But through all of that, I was always just trying to get as many clay classes in as I could. And I, at this point, continue to take classes. And I also teach at the clay school. But I decided this segment of time, I moved here about 6 years ago, and I decided like this chapter in my life is basically about clay. So I am making things in my studio and selling them mostly in person. I don't do much online. And yeah, while I love all of the other materials, this is the one that has really captured my attention, and I'm pretty dedicated to it. Yeah, could you go on to the next slide? This is a little detail of a vest that my mother made, where she was exploring the material of fabric, and which she did endlessly. So there was all different kinds of things she did with fabric, and she really showed me the idea of variation, the idea of exploration, the idea of taking ideas and putting them together or working them a slightly different way. And I feel like that is really, in a nutshell, what I like to do with clay. I'm always trying to figure out how to manipulate it in different ways. So I did a bit of a takeoff on this on the next slide, if you could put that up. Thank you. So these are pieces of tiles that I made and cut and bent and connected, and then I put them on glass so they hang. They look like kind of see-through, like they're floating kind of on glass. And that was the beginning of an idea that I've done a little exploring with. And I have a small exhibit that's going to be going up at the Karma Beauty Salon coming up next week. And it'll be primarily these pop-up quilts. So thanks. Next one. Here is a window at Handwork where I am a member. And I just put this window up focusing on the collection of work that I do, where I'm throwing on the wheel and then I'm working the clay. Generally it's thrown on the wheel, but not always. And then working with clay at different stages of moisture. So I had an instructor that used to say it's a different material at the 1,000 stages of clay. It functions differently, it moves differently, it connects differently, and that is a lot of what I explore in my work. And then, hey, you know what? You can put your chocolate pudding in those things, so that's pretty cool. Here's a great example of a piece where this is thrown, different components, put them together to make a cool design, and then, you know, chip and dip and dip and dip, or, you know, whatever you come up with, sorting your M&Ms, what have you. Yeah, thank you. Next one. This is a piece that I call Tectonic, and it's a little bit of a new exploration where I'm throwing on the wheel and then I'm carving and pushing and pulling from the shape of the clay at just the right stage of moisture so that I can then alter the plates or the, you know, the surfaces of the piece. And then I go in and do some carving, and it's just super fun. I love the abstract design. I love the idea that my piece can be a sculpture that stands on its own and is lovely and interesting to look at. And then, you know, you can also put your flowers in it. Next one. I started making these kind of squiggly dishes. It started as an accident, and I was making a rim for a plate and it didn't work, and I pushed it in such a way that the sides popped up, and I was like, huh, that's cool. So now I make a whole series of these like wiggle things, and people are always wondering, they say like, oh, that's so cool, but what do I do with it? So I use them and I take pictures of them. It's like, hey, you know, you put your chocolate in there. Everybody needs chocolate. So, thank you. Next one. The other inspiration for me is anything that has to do with water. I'm obsessed with water, and it makes sense because clay is a ton of water. It's a very continuous circle there. But this is a piece that I made that kind of features the frog, and I really think frogs are cool because, as I'm told, if you have frogs in your environment, it means that it's healthy, that there's a good balance environmentally. So I think that's kind of neat. And I've used the frog quite a bit as a symbol of that in my work. Next one. This piece also thrown on the potter's wheel and then altered with a fish design, which I use quite often. And I add that to a lot of my pieces, and then I do the carving through. I like to make it look like it's kind of alive and moving, and yeah, so I've got quite a few of those kinds of pieces that I make. Next one, please. This is a good one to end with because this is part of the fossil series. You can see a trilobite on the left and an ammonite on the right. And these fossils on the piece were made from impressions of actual fossils. And one of the things that I love about this full circle idea with the clay is that these little animals existed around here, like 520 million years ago. And what we have of the remains is a function of the way all of this organic matter is processed over a long period of time. And then there I am taking this mud that's been processed over a long period of time, making something out of it, and then putting a fossil on it, which was there way back when that clay, was processing. So yeah, that's about that.
Thank you. There's just so much, I love these artist talks because there's so much inspiration and thought and history and knowledge that goes into this whole creative process. And it just makes everything that we're looking at so much more enriching. Next we have Michael Ludgate. There is Michael. And I forgot to mention, Michael isn't open this weekend, but we're going to have open studios on the second Saturday in November and the second Saturday in December. And Michael will, I haven't put that up on arttrail.com yet. I haven't organized it yet. But somewhere around October 25th or 26th, I will have that information on arttrail.com. Hi, Michael.
Hello. Yeah, I'll be open my studio at those 2 dates. October was just too busy with music projects for me. So photographically, I always have a hard time deciding what to show to people because I just looked in my Lightroom, the cloud storage, I have 30,000 images. But maybe only 20 or 30 of them are like kind of awesome. and I do have various themes that I focus on. One of them is macro photography. But I couldn't find 7 or 10 macros that I wanted to share. Here's one though that probably, if people tried to guess what it is, they would never ever guess. Even I forget what it is sometimes when I look at it. But the next slide, Robin, actually shows what it is. This is the blossom of a common thistle. And the previous macro is the stamens of that blossom up close. And then I kind of was on a nighttime, late afternoon, evening, nighttime theme for the next few slides. So if you go to the next one, Robin, yeah, this is it's actually our property. We own 45 acres and it's beautiful. I really rarely have to go anywhere else to get interesting photographs. This is at nighttime with the moon, and the moon, which I'll show you in a later slide, is so bright that you either have to adjust the camera so that it only shows the moon or somehow hide it. So this is the trick that I often use, is I hide it behind a tree or a building or something like that. This is the moon hiding behind an aspen tree and kind of lighting up the mist in the meadow behind it. Next. So when I do leave my own town of Caroline, this is one of the places I like to go. This is my wife's family grew up in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. This is Lake Willoughby in Vermont, a late evening sunset with a long exposure, so the water looks kind of glassy. And then when I was there this summer, the following night, I went up the hill next. Please, yeah. And this I was thinking this sort of ties in with Domenica's theme of how she was showing the transition between different colors. And what happens from the same location, just at different times of the evening. So I'm standing on a mountainside near that lake that was in the previous slide, looking off into the distance towards the sunset. And it was about, this was 7:30 in the evening in July, and everything just had this blue tint to it, but was gradually starting, there was orange starting to show in the way distant. And then if you click to the next slide, this was almost an hour later, and I had the telephoto lens set up on a tripod, and I was catching images of this rock. And this was totally random luck. These three teenagers, local teenagers, pulled up in a car and started goofballing around on the rock. And and this was the image that I captured just by blind luck. It's one of my favorite Vermont images. And in most of these, I'm pointing the camera directly at the light source. In the next image, you'll see this is back home in our front yard. In the lower part of the image, you can see a little rectangle of gold. That's a window on our house, and the Milky Way. So the light source was the Milky Way. And then more recently, in the next slide, just a plain old-fashioned moon photo. So with a telephoto lens and the shutter speed adjusted so it would show the details on the moon's surface, this is what you get. And in the next slide, I'm now early in the morning, pointing the lens almost directly. The sun is too bright often to point directly at in the daytime, but it was just outside of the frame and it was very misty. So this is what I came up with that morning. And then in contrast to the moon, what happens if you point the camera directly at the moon and do a long exposure when there's auroras out, you'll see in the next slide. So that superstar that's in the valley is the moon. It was overexposed, so it came out looking like a bright star. This was just a week or so ago when all those cell phone pics of auroras were popping up on Facebook. This is from taken near our home, looking directly south. That's it. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. Our last artist is Bob Roemisch, and I'm finding you, Bob. And you're on mute, so you could take yourself off mute. And Bob is open this weekend, and he's on Jackson Hollow Road in Newfield, and has a little dog, apparently.
That's not my dog, but
Oh.
that was just a cute one there where I was working. Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah, we're open this weekend, and I invite everybody to come out. And we live on 10 acres in the woods, and I developed a hip camp and Airbnb here. I built 3 different camps and a bunch of trails. Just finished an A-frame, and I built a yurt and a cabin on the property. So that's something that I'd like to share with you guys. So let's see. The first piece of art here is actually, it was a call for artists in Paso Robles, California, and they accepted my proposals. So I came up with this design. They were developing a trail, series of trails on a river there in the city, and this was a piece that I came up with. It's some of the indigenous species of the area, and some extinct and some on the endangered list. That was a really fun project. I would love to get some more of those.
What's the medium? It's metal, right? What kind of?
Yeah, it's all steel, and then the bench that winds through it represents the river, and that's a composite wood. So yeah, that was, and so here's a bronze piece that I did. I had access to a foundry when I lived in California. My wife and I moved here 8 years ago. So right at the present, I don't have access to one. I would love to do some more bronze. It really, really is fun work. It's the lost wax technique is the technique that I used. I play a lot with the light and the dark and the yin and the yang in a lot of my art that I do, and this represents that. And it's to me, it's very impactful, and a lot of my art I don't name. So there are some in this list here that we have put together that I do have names to, but I like to let the viewer interpret it for themselves. So it means something to me, and it can mean something completely different to another person. So that's why I don't particularly like to name a lot of my pieces. I just like it to speak to the viewer, to themselves personally. So next piece, you'll see I do a lot of different mediums. I'd really like to explore all different genres. I've painted, I sculpt, I chainsaw art, I make musical instruments, I've done Native American longbows and knife work, American crafts, and the list goes on. And there's nothing that I won't explore. I just like to do so many different things. So this is an oil on canvas, and I did kind of a series of female figures, kind of goddess type figures, and just the light and the colors, and you know, just something that I was exploring, and thought you would like to see that. So see the next one. This is a wood sculpture. I do call this one endangered, and it represents all of the species that man has pretty much annihilated. And so I just wanted to represent that kind of an antler flame feeling there. The wood is spalted maple attached to a piece of mahogany, and I think the base is also a different species of mahogany. And it's about 2 feet tall, that piece is. And yeah, the next piece. So this is a steel. This is all metal, and I made this a few years ago. You know, that we've had, you know, with climate change and just the whirlwind of disasters that we have in the world nowadays. I just wanted to make a piece that, you know, represented that in a way of just being carried away with all of the, you know, the destruction and devastation that we can face.
And it moves.
And it moves, my wife just pointed out.
We can hear you, Pam.
We can hear you. All right, next piece. So this one I call Study 1526. It roughly has 1,526 pins stuck in this breast figure, and it represents again the yin and the yang, and the light and the dark that we all possess, the beauty and the pain that we can have and inflict and see. So that was kind of what inspired that. And next one, a lot of my artwork, it just comes to me. I don't necessarily start off with an idea. I just start building, or, you know, making, and you know, other things do come from a place of where I try to come up with a plan. And this one kind of represents that my headaches, and I suffer from chronic pain, which is one of the reasons why I got into artwork, more so than, you know, I come from a building background. I did cabinetry and built houses for 35 years. And because, you know, of my pain, I can't do that anymore. And so I'm developing more of my art. And so this represents, you know, the pressure that we can sometimes feel, kind of a whimsical, and so there's that one. Next. This one just came, I try to use as many recycled and reclaimed materials as I can. A lot of the art from before was from recycled material, and this was from something I made. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I think it was from another piece of art that this little offcut came off of it, and I thought, well, that looks like a perfect snake, and how do I mount it? And, well, bend a piece of copper and attach it like that. So that one, I really like that one. I think the red on black is your dead jack, poisonous snakes, I think. Anyway, I can't remember that saying. The next one, I think we got 2 more. This one's kind of a little whimsical. It's a wire piece, and does it represent, what does it represent to you? It kind of, to me, it's the big bolt or screw that has gone through his body, you know, is from just the being impaled or and being just enveloped with this pain. And so it's kind of that's kind of where I came up with that. And I think finally, this one is another bronze, and it can be interpreted many different ways. And this one I did not name. It could be two people dancing. It could be a woman passing out and the man holding her up. I think there again, I like to leave it up to the viewer to interpret it for themselves. So that's about it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to remove your spotlight. Put me back up. And I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everybody who's watching this recording tonight. Thank you so much for coming. If you are in the area and you can come to the Greater Ithaca Art Trail Open Studios this weekend, that would be amazing.